Imagine waking up tomorrow in the body of the thing you've spent your entire life destroying. Imagine feeling the terror you've inflicted on others coursing through your own veins. Imagine running for your life from the people you used to call friends, people who now see you as nothing more than meat. This is what happened to Kwame, the greatest hunter in West Africa. A man so skilled with a bow that he never missed. A man so ruthless that he killed for sport, not survival. Until the day a pregnant deer looked him in the eyes and begged for mercy. He laughed, and shot her anyway. 24 hours later, Kwame woke up on 4 legs, with antlers on his head, and the sound of hunting horns in the distance. This is the story of the hunter who became the hunted. And trust me, by the end, you'll never look at your choices the same way again. In a village on the edge of the great West African forest, there lived a man named Kwame. Kwame was a legend. Not the good kind of legend, the kind that makes people whisper and avoid eye contact. From the age of 12, when he killed his first antelope, Kwame discovered he had a gift. His aim was supernatural. He could shoot an arrow through a bird's eye from 100 paces. He could track animals through terrain that confused even the most experienced hunters. But somewhere along the way, skill became pride. Pride became arrogance. And arrogance became cruelty. Most hunters in the village followed the old ways, the sacred rules passed down through generations. Never kill a pregnant animal. Never kill more than you can eat. Never kill for sport, only for survival. Always thank the animal spirit for its sacrifice. Respect the forest, for it provides life. Kwame broke every single rule. Old superstitions, he would say, spitting on the ground. The forest exists for us to use. Animals are dumb creatures put here for our benefit. Why should I limit myself because of some old woman's fairy tales? The village elders tried to counsel him. Kwame, my son, the oldest hunter, a man named Kofi who had seen 70 rainy seasons, approached him one day. You have great skill, yes. But you hunt with hate in your heart. You kill baby animals while their mothers watch. You wound creatures and let them suffer for your entertainment. This path leads to darkness. Kwame laughed in the old man's face. You're just jealous, old man. You're slow now, can't hit what you aim at. I bring more meat to the village than any 3 hunters combined. I'm the best, and you can't stand it. It's not about the quantity of meat, Kofi said quietly. It's about the spirit in which you hunt. Every animal has a soul, Kwame. Every life has value. When you kill without respect, without gratitude, without necessity, you disturb the balance. And the forest always restores balance. More superstitious nonsense, Kwame waved him off. Watch and learn, old man. Today I'll bring back enough meat to feed the village for a week. What Kofi didn't tell him, what Kwame wouldn't have believed anyway, was that the forest was indeed watching. And it was keeping score. That afternoon, Kwame ventured deep into the forest, deeper than most hunters dared to go. This was the sacred grove, the place where the oldest trees grew, where the animals went to give birth, where the spirit of the forest was said to be strongest. The village hunters avoided this place out of respect. Kwame went there specifically because he knew he'd find easy targets, animals who felt safe there, who'd grown comfortable, who wouldn't expect danger in their sanctuary. As he moved silently through the underbrush, he spotted her. A doe. A female deer. Beautiful, with a coat that seemed to shimmer in the dappled sunlight. She was grazing peacefully, completely unaware of the predator watching her. But Kwame noticed something else, something that should have made him lower his bow and walk away. She was heavily pregnant. Her belly was swollen, clearly just days or maybe hours away from giving birth. By every tradition, every rule, every code of honor, she was forbidden prey. Kwame smiled. He knocked an arrow. Just as he was about to release, the deer turned and looked directly at him. Their eyes met. And here's where the story gets strange. where the line between folktale and reality blurs. Because in that moment, Kwame swears, and he would swear this until his dying day, that the deer spoke to him. Not with words exactly, but with a voice that bypassed his ears and spoke directly to his soul. "Please," the voice said, trembling with emotion. "I am about to give birth. My baby will come today. If you kill me, you kill 2 lives, mine and my child's, who has done nothing to you. I beg you, hunter, show mercy just this once. Let me live to bring my child into the world. After that, if you must hunt, hunt me then. But please, not now. Not like this." Kwame felt something strange in that moment, something he hadn't felt in years. A flicker of conscience. A whisper of compassion. The faintest echo of the man he might have been if pride hadn't poisoned him. For 3 full seconds, he hesitated. Then his ego spoke louder. "Why should I listen to an animal? Why should I care about her baby? I'm the apex predator here. I take what I want, when I want it. No deer tells me what to do." He aimed at her heart. The deer's eyes widened, not with animal panic, but with a very human expression of betrayal and grief. "Then you will understand," the voice said, no longer pleading but pronouncing. "You will understand what it means to run. To fear. To be hunted by those who see you as nothing more than meat. You will know the terror you have caused. And only then, only when you truly understand, will you be free." Kwame laughed out loud. "Crazy talking deer. You're definitely going on my wall." He released the arrow. It flew true, it always did. It struck the deer in the heart. She collapsed, her legs folding beneath her, her beautiful eyes dimming. Kwame approached his kill, already planning how he'd boast about this trophy. As he bent down to begin field dressing the deer, he saw it, her belly was moving. The baby inside was still alive, struggling. A better man would have acted quickly to save the fawn. Kwame just shrugged and reached for his knife. That's when he felt it. A tingling sensation in his fingertips. A coldness that spread up his arms, into his chest, throughout his entire body. The forest suddenly went silent. Completely, unnaturally silent. No birds. No insects. No wind. Nothing. And in that silence, he heard a voice, ancient, powerful, neither male nor female. "The hunter has become the hunted. Let him understand." Kwame tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't walk right. He looked down at his hands and screamed. They were changing. His fingers were fusing together, reforming into hooves. His skin was sprouting short brown fur. His body was compacting, reshaping, transforming. No. No. What's happening to me? But the forest didn't answer. The transformation continued, relentless and agonizing. Within 60 seconds, Kwame the hunter ceased to exist as a human. In his place stood a young male deer, trembling and confused, standing over the body of the doe he'd just killed. The first thing Kwame noticed was how different the world looked. Everything was sharper but also flatter, his depth perception had changed. Colors were muted, but he could detect the slightest movement from the corner of his eye. His hearing had amplified 1,000-fold, he could hear an ant walking on a leaf 50 feet away. The second thing he noticed was the overwhelming, all-consuming sensation of vulnerability. As a human, Kwame had walked through the forest with confidence, with the swagger of an apex predator. He'd feared nothing. Now, as a deer, every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made him want to run. His heart hammered in his chest like a drum, and a voice in his head, an instinctual, animal voice, screamed one word over and over. Danger. 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 He tried to speak, to call out for help. What came out was a bleating sound, a deer's cry of distress. No, 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 this isn't real. This is a nightmare. I'll wake up. I'll wake up and this will all be. The sound of a branch breaking made him leap 3 feet in the air, his new body reacting before his human mind could process the threat. A leopard. A massive male leopard emerged from the undergrowth, its yellow eyes fixed on him, its body low in a hunting crouch. Kwame knew this leopard. He'd seen it many times during his hunts and had even wounded it once for fun, just to watch it limp away. The leopard remembered too. Kwame could see recognition in those predatory eyes, but also satisfaction. To the leopard, he was no longer the human hunter who'd caused it pain. He was prey. Dinner. Justice. The leopard charged. Kwame's human mind screamed at him to stand his ground, to fight, to show dominance like a human would. But his dear body had other ideas. He ran. And oh God, did he run. His legs moved with a speed and desperation he'd never experienced as a human. He crashed through the underbrush, leaping over fallen logs, weaving between trees, his heart threatening to explode from his chest. Behind him, he heard the leopard, close, too close, gaining with every second. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. This is how all those animals felt. This terror. This helplessness. Oh God, I'm going to. He burst into a clearing and ran straight into a trap. A hunting trap. One that he himself had set 3 days ago. The rope snare caught his back leg, and he was yanked backward, flipping upside down, suspended by one leg from a tree branch. The leopard skidded to a stop at the edge of the clearing, eyeing the trap there with satisfaction, in no hurry now that its meal was secured. As Kwame hung there, helpless, watching the leopard approach with casual confidence, time seemed to slow down. He saw his entire life with sudden, brutal clarity. Every animal he'd killed unnecessarily. Every creature he'd wounded for entertainment. Every pregnant doe, every baby, every bird, every life he'd taken without thought or gratitude. He saw them all now, not as dumb animals, but as beings who had felt this exact terror. Who had known this helplessness. Who had died afraid and in pain because he'd found it amusing. I'm sorry, he thought desperately. I'm so sorry. I didn't understand. I didn't know it felt like this. Please, please, I'll change. I'll be different. I'll never. The leopard was 10 feet away. 5 feet. Close enough that Kwame could smell its breath, see the dried blood on its muzzle from a previous kill. Close enough to see death in its eyes. Then, a sound that made both the leopard and Kwame freeze. Hunting horns. Dogs barking. Human voices. A hunting party. Coming this way. The leopard's head swiveled toward the sound, calculating. It looked back at Kwame one more time, then melted into the forest shadows. The risk of encountering armed humans wasn't worth it, there would be other prey, other days. Kwame should have felt relief. Instead, as he heard the hunting party getting closer, as he recognized the voices of his former friends and hunting companions, a new terror gripped him. They were hunting deer today. And here he was, a deer, trapped, helpless, perfect prey. He could hear them now, close enough to make out words. Look. Something's caught in one of Kwame's traps. Is it the deer he was after? Let's go see. If it's a good buck, we can take it back to the village. Kwame's been gone 2 days now. Strange that he hasn't returned. Probably drunk somewhere, boasting about his kills. They laughed. Kwame had laughed with them so many times. Now their laughter sounded like death approaching. 3 hunters emerged into the clearing. Kwame recognized them all. Kofi, the old hunter who'd warned him. And 2 younger hunters, his former friends, Yo and Mensa. They saw him hanging from the trap. Look at that buck. Those antlers. Kwame set this trap perfectly. Too bad he's not here to see it. Yo approached, pulling out his knife. Kwame tried to speak, tried to somehow communicate that he was human, that he was Kwame, that this was all a terrible mistake. What came out was the bleating, panicked cry of a terrified deer. "You raised his knife." Old Kofi stepped forward. "Wait." The younger hunter paused. "What is it, elder?" Kofi approached slowly, looking into Kwame's eyes. The old man stared for a long moment, and Kwame saw something flicker in those ancient eyes: recognition. Understanding. Knowledge of something beyond the natural world. "This deer," Kofi said slowly, his eyes. "They are different." "They are what?" You asked impatiently. "Afraid," Kofi said finally. "But not like an animal afraid. Like a man afraid." The younger hunters laughed. "Elder, you've been listening to too many stories. It's just a deer. A good one too. Let's take it back to the village." But Kofi kept staring into Kwame's eyes. And in that moment, some understanding passed between them. The old man knew. Somehow, impossibly, he knew. "Cut it down," Kofi said quietly. "But don't kill it. Set it free." "What?" Mensa protested. "Elder, this is a perfect buck. The meat alone." "I said set it free." Kofi's voice carried an authority that brooked no argument. "This deer is special. It has lessons to learn. And killing it now would be a crime against nature itself." The young hunters grumbled but obeyed. They cut the rope. Kwame crashed to the ground, his leg aching from where the snare had caught him. "Go," Kofi said, looking directly at him. "Go and learn. But know this, you cannot run forever. Eventually, you must face what you've become and why." Kwame didn't need to be told twice. The moment he could move, he ran. Days blurred into weeks. Or was it weeks into months? Time lost meaning for Kwame in his new form. He learned things he never wanted to know. He learned what it meant to be constantly afraid. Every sound was a potential threat. Every shadow hid a predator. Every moment required vigilance, because the world was full of things that wanted to eat him. He learned what it meant to be wounded and helpless. When he caught his leg on a sharp rock, he couldn't bandage it. He couldn't seek medicine. He could only limp and hope infection didn't set in, hope predators didn't smell the blood, hope weakness didn't make him easy prey. He learned what it meant to watch your family die. One day, he was grazing with a small herd of deer, his people now, whether he wanted them to be or not. They'd accepted him, taught him where to find food, how to recognize danger, how to survive. Among them was a mother deer with her 2 fawns. The babies were playful, innocent, reminding Kwame painfully of human children. Then the hunters came. Human hunters. From his village. People he knew. They killed the mother first, a clean shot through the heart. She died quickly, at least. But her 2 fawns, confused and terrified, didn't run. They stayed by their mother's body, crying, trying to wake her. The hunters laughed. "Look at the babies. They are too stupid to run. Easy meat." They killed both fawns. Kwame watched from behind a tree, his body trembling, unable to help, unable to save them, forced to witness the exact cruelty he himself had inflicted countless times. The casual way the hunters joked while ending young lives. The complete absence of respect or gratitude. The waste, they took the best meat and left the rest to rot, including the fawns, which were too small to bother with. This is what I was, Kwame thought, horror and shame washing over him. This is what I did. How many mothers did I kill? How many babies? And I laughed. God help me, I laughed. He learned what it meant to be seen as an object, not a being. One day, desperate for water during the dry season, he approached a watering hole at the same time as a group of humans from a neighboring village. They saw him and immediately went for their weapons. There was no consideration of whether he was a threat, he wasn't, no acknowledgement of shared need, they were both thirsty, no moment of connection as living beings. To them, he was instantly, automatically, nothing more than potential meat or a potential threat. His life had value only in how it could serve them. And he realized, this is how he'd seen animals. Not as beings with their own experiences, their own families, their own right to exist, but only as objects to use or obstacles to remove. He learned what it meant to know you're going to die and be unable to stop it. One night, a pack of wild dogs cornered him in a ravine. He'd made a mistake, gotten separated from the herd, wandered into unfamiliar territory, and by the time he realized his error, it was too late. The dogs circled him, taking their time, wearing him down. They'd done this before. They knew he'd eventually tire, and then the kill would be easy. Kwame fought with everything he had. He kicked with his hoofs, slashed with his antlers, charged and dodged and desperately sought any escape route. But there were too many of them, and they were patient. As exhaustion finally overwhelmed him, as his legs began to shake and his vision blurred, as he felt his life approaching its end, one thought consumed him. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I'm not ready. There's so much I haven't done, haven't said. I want to live. Please, God, I just want to live. And he understood, with perfect, devastating clarity, that every animal he'd ever killed had felt exactly this. This desperate desire to live. This bargaining with the universe for just one more day, one more hour, one more minute. He'd ended that desire hundreds of times. Casually. For sport. For ego. For fun. The pack leader lunged for his throat. Kwame closed his eyes. But the killing bite never came. Instead, he heard a yelp of pain, and suddenly the dogs were scattering, retreating, disappearing into the night. Kwame opened his eyes to see a massive elephant standing over him, the matriarch of the forest, ancient and wise, with tusks that had seen many generations. She looked down at him with knowing eyes. Not yet, her gaze seemed to say. Your lesson is not yet complete. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Kwame alive, trembling, and irreversibly changed. 6 months passed in his dear form. 6 months of fear, pain, hunger, cold, and the constant, exhausting vigilance required just to survive. Kwame had transformed in ways beyond the physical. The arrogant, cruel hunter was gone. In his place was a being who understood suffering from the inside out. Who knew vulnerability. Who had learned empathy through experiencing the terror he'd inflicted. But there was one more lesson. The hardest one. One morning, Kwame woke to find the forest in chaos. A massive hunting party had arrived, not from his village but from the capital. Rich men, nobility, hunting for sport with an army of beaters and dogs. They weren't hunting for food. They were hunting for trophies. For ego. For entertainment. Just like Kwame used to do. The beaters drove the animals toward the hunters, and the slaughter began. Kwame ran with the panicked herd, but the humans had planned well. They'd created a killing zone, a natural bottleneck where fleeing animals would have nowhere to go. As Kwame and dozens of other deer were herded into this trap, he saw him. Standing among the noble hunters, bow in hand, was a young man who looked eerily familiar. It took Kwame a moment to recognize him, his nephew. His brother's son, a boy Kwame had taught to hunt, had trained in all his cruel techniques. The boy had grown, and from the cold look in his eyes, the cruel smile on his face, Kwame could see he'd learned his lessons well. I did this, Kwame thought with crushing guilt. I created another me. I passed on my cruelty like an inheritance. How many other lives will suffer because of what I taught him? The boy raised his bow, aiming into the panicked mass of trapped animals, not caring which one he hit, just wanting to kill something. The arrow flew. It struck a young doe, barely more than a fawn herself. She collapsed, crying out in pain. The arrow hadn't killed her, just wounded her. She thrashed on the ground, suffering. The boy laughed. He was reaching for another arrow to finish her off or, more likely, to wound another animal for fun. And something in Kwame snapped. All the fear, all the instinct for self-preservation, all the animal terror that had controlled him for 6 months, it all evaporated in a surge of protective fury. He charged. Not away from the hunters, but toward them. Specifically, toward his nephew. The other deer scattered in confusion. Prey animals don't charge toward danger. But Kwame wasn't just a deer anymore. He was a man in a deer's body, driven by human conscience and the desperate need to stop the cycle of cruelty he'd started. He lowered his antlers and ran full speed at the boy. The young hunter's eyes widened in shock. This wasn't how deer were supposed to behave. They run away, they don't attack. Kwame hit him square in the chest with his antlers, knocking the bow from his hands and sending him sprawling. The other hunters shouted in alarm, raising their weapons. Kwame stood over the fallen boy, not attacking him further, just standing there, placing himself between the cruel young hunter and his potential victims. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The boy looked up into Kwame's eyes. Really looked. And saw something that made him freeze. "Uncle," he whispered, impossibly. "Uncle Kwame." Kwame's human consciousness surged forward. He wanted to speak, to tell the boy, "Yes, it's me, I'm here, trapped in this form as punishment for my cruelty." But he couldn't speak. All he could do was stand there, meeting the boy's eyes, letting whatever humanity remained in him shine through. The other hunters were closing in, weapons ready. "Back away, boy. We'll kill it." But the nephew held up his hand. "Wait. Please. Just, wait." He slowly stood up, never breaking eye contact with Kwame. If you're somehow." The boy stammered, tears forming in his eyes, "Then I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You taught me to hunt without mercy, and I thought I was honoring your memory. But if this is what happens, if the forest truly punishes cruelty, then I don't want to become what you became." The boy took his knife from his belt. For a moment, Kwame thought he was going to use it on him. Instead, the boy turned to the wounded doe, approached her carefully, and mercifully ended her suffering with a quick, clean strike. Then he stood, turned to the other hunters, and said something that shocked everyone present. "I'm done hunting. Not forever, maybe. But until I understand why I'm doing it. Until I can hunt with respect instead of cruelty. My uncle taught me wrong, and I won't make his mistakes." He dropped his knife and walked away from the hunting party. And in that moment, as Kwame watched the boy choose compassion over cruelty, something shifted. The world around him began to shimmer. The same tingling sensation he'd felt during his transformation spread through his body again. The hunters stepped back in alarm as the deer before them began to change. Fur receded. Hooves reformed into hands and feet. Antlers dissolved. The deer's body stretched and reshaped. Within 60 seconds, Kwame stood before them, human again, naked and trembling, but undeniably human. The hunters stared in stunned silence. One of the nobles finally spoke, "Sorcery. Witchcraft." But old Kofi, who had somehow appeared at the edge of the clearing, stepped forward. "Not sorcery," he said calmly. "Justice. And mercy." This man was transformed because he hunted with cruelty. He lived as prey to understand what prey feels. He is restored because he finally learned compassion, not just for himself, but for others. He risked his life to protect the weak. That is the lesson the forest demanded. Kwame returned to his village, but he was not the same man who had left. The physical transformation had reversed, but the internal one was permanent. He could no longer look at an animal without seeing a being, a creature with its own experience of life, its own desire to exist, its own family and friends and fears. He could no longer hold a bow without his hands shaking, remembering what it felt like to be on the receiving end. He could no longer walk through the forest with the swagger of an apex predator, because he knew, truly knew, how quickly a predator can become prey. For weeks, he couldn't speak about what had happened. The trauma was too fresh, the memories too vivid. He'd wake up screaming in the night, still feeling the leopard's breath on his neck, still hearing the hunting dogs closing in. His brother's son, the young nephew who'd recognized him, spent hours sitting with him in silence. Eventually, the boy asked, "What was it like?" Kwame was quiet for a long time. Then, "It was like, imagine every cruel thing you've ever done. Every time you caused pain without thinking. Every moment you took something from someone weaker just because you could. Now imagine experiencing all of that from the other side. Not just understanding it intellectually, but living it. Feeling the terror, the helplessness, the pain. That's what it was like. Every single day." "I'm so sorry I was becoming like you," the boy whispered. "Don't be sorry," Kwame said. "Be different. That's the only apology that matters, changing so you don't repeat the same mistakes." Eventually, Kwame began to hunt again. But everything was different. He followed the old ways now, the sacred rules he'd once mocked. He never killed pregnant animals. He never killed more than needed. He never killed for sport or entertainment. He always thanked the animal spirit and used every part of what he took. And he taught others. Young hunters would come to him for training, and he would tell them his story, all of it, the transformation, the terror, the lessons learned through suffering. Some didn't believe him. They thought it was just a parable, a teaching story. But those who looked into his eyes saw something that made them reconsider. They saw the depth of real trauma, real transformation, real understanding. Old Kofi, the elder who had somehow known the truth even when Kwame was trapped in animal form, came to visit him one day. "You understand now," the old man said. It wasn't a question. "I do," Kwame replied. "Every animal I see, I remember what it feels like. The fear. The vulnerability. The desperate desire just to live another day." "How did you know?" "When I was trapped in the snare." Kofi smiled sadly. "Because you weren't the first, Kwame. The forest has taught this lesson before. To hunters who forget that with power comes responsibility. Who forget that all life is sacred. I saw it happen to a hunter when I was young. And I understood when I looked in your eyes, those were human eyes looking back at me, trapped in an animal's body, finally learning what you needed to learn." "Does the transformation happen to every cruel hunter?" "No," Kofi said. "Only to those who still have something worth saving. Those whose hearts haven't completely died. The forest saw potential in you, Kwame. That's why you were given this terrible gift, the chance to learn before you were beyond teaching. And the others? The ones whose hearts have died." Kofi's expression darkened. "They are dealt with in other ways. Ways less merciful than transformation." Years passed. Kwame grew old, his hair white, his body marked by age and the scars of his time as prey. He became the village's most respected hunter, not because he killed the most, but because he hunted with wisdom, respect, and gratitude. More importantly, he became a teacher. But he didn't just teach hunting techniques. He taught philosophy, ethics, interconnection. Every action has consequences, he would tell his students. Not just consequences for others, but consequences for you. When you act with cruelty, you don't just hurt your victim, you damage your own soul. You become less human. And the universe has ways of teaching us what we refuse to learn willingly. He would take his students into the forest and have them sit in silence, just observing. "Watch that deer," he'd whisper. "See how she checks on her phone every few seconds. See how the herd moves together, protecting the young and the weak. They have family. They have love. They have social structures. They are not that different from us. He'd point out the birds sharing food, the elephants mourning their dead, the wolves playing with their pups. Life is sacred, he'd say. All life. Not because some rule says so, but because suffering is real. Joy is real. The desire to live is real. And we, who have the power to end life, have the greatest responsibility to respect it. One day, a young, arrogant hunter came to him, someone who reminded Kwame painfully of his younger self. "Old man," the youth said dismissively, "I hear you have a story about becoming a deer." "Ridiculous. You're just trying to scare us into being weak." Kwame looked at the young man calmly. "You think compassion is weakness. I think mercy is weakness. The strong dominate. The weak submit. That's nature." "And have you ever been weak?" Kwame asked. "Never." "Then you haven't lived long enough," Kwame said. "Everyone is weak sometimes. Everyone is vulnerable. Everyone needs mercy eventually. The question is whether you have shown enough mercy to others that some might be returned to you when you need it." The young hunter laughed. "I don't need mercy. I'm the best hunter in 3 villages." Kwame recognized that laugh. He'd laughed exactly like that once. "There was a deer," Kwame said quietly, "that I shot many years ago. A pregnant doe who begged me for mercy. I laughed, just like you're laughing now. And you know what happened?" "What?" the youth asked mockingly. "I became her. I became the thing I'd shown no mercy to. And I learned, through terror and pain and helplessness, what I should have learned through wisdom. The question for you, young one, is this: do you want to learn the easy way or the hard way?" The mockery faded from the young hunter's face. Something in Kwame's eyes, some depth of real experience, real trauma, real knowledge, made him reconsider. The easy way," he said quietly. "Good," Kwame nodded. "Then sit. Listen. Learn. And maybe, just maybe, you can avoid making the mistakes that cost me 6 months of my humanity and nearly cost me my life." The young man sat. And Kwame taught him. Many years later, when Kwame was very old and near the end of his life, he made one final journey into the forest. He walked slowly, his body bent with age, until he reached the sacred grove, the place where his transformation had begun. And there, in that holy place, he found a deer grazing peacefully. A young buck, strong and healthy, with antlers just beginning to grow. The deer looked up at his approach. Their eyes met. And Kwame knelt down, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for the terror. Thank you for the pain. Thank you for teaching me what I refused to learn any other way. I was a monster, and you made me human again, truly human, for the first time in my life." The deer watched him calmly, without fear.